Introduction. The quiet power of discipline. Every person eventually reaches a moment where they begin to question how success truly works. They observe people who seem to move steadily towards stability, opportunity, and financial strength, while others struggle endlessly despite working just as hard. At first, the explanation appears simple. Many assume that the difference must be luck, talent, or privilege. But when one looks more carefully at the lives of those who build lasting success, another pattern begins to emerge. The difference is often discipline. Discipline is rarely dramatic. It does not create sudden breakthroughs that attract attention. In fact, it often appears quiet and unremarkable from the outside. Discipline looks like someone saving money when others spend it. It looks like someone studying a subject long after others have stopped paying attention. It looks like patience when impatience would feel easier. Because discipline unfolds slowly, many people underestimate its power. They search for shortcuts instead. They look for strategies that promise rapid wealth or instant transformation. When those shortcuts fail, frustration follows, and the cycle begins again. The Stoic philosophers understood this pattern thousands of years ago. Thinkers such as Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus spent their lives observing human behavior. They noticed that most people were controlled by impulses, fear, desire, comfort, and the constant search for approval. These impulses pushed people into decisions that often led to regret. The Stoics believed that the path to a stronger life required something different. They believed that individuals must learn to discipline their thoughts, their reactions, and their habits. When a person develops this kind of discipline, they gain a powerful advantage over life itself. Because the world is unpredictable. Economic conditions change. Opportunities appear and disappear. Circumstances shift in ways no one can fully predict. A person who depends entirely on external stability will always feel uncertain. But a disciplined person builds stability from within. They learn how to think clearly even when events around them are chaotic. They develop habits that guide their decisions instead of reacting emotionally to every situation. They prepare themselves for opportunity long before opportunity arrives. This mindset becomes especially powerful when applied to financial life. Many people believe wealth is created through clever strategies or fortunate timing. While these factors can play a role, they rarely explain long-term success. Wealth that endures is usually built through simple behaviors repeated over long periods of time. Saving consistently, learning continuously, investing patiently, making thoughtful decisions even when others are acting impulsively. These actions may appear small on any single day, but over time they accumulate into something remarkable. The Stoics believed that human beings often underestimate the power of small, repeated choices. A single decision may seem insignificant, but decisions create habits. Habits create character, and character shapes the direction of a person's life. The discipline code is built on this understanding. It is not a complicated theory or a secret formula reserved for a few individuals. Instead, it is a philosophy rooted in timeless principles that anyone can practice. These principles guide individuals toward financial strength, personal clarity, and a life built intentionally rather than accidentally. The discipline code teaches us to focus on what we can control rather than worrying about what we cannot. It encourages us to master our impulses so our decisions are guided by reason rather than emotion. It reminds us that consistency matters more than intensity, and that growth often requires the willingness to endure temporary discomfort. Most importantly, it reminds us that discipline must serve a purpose greater than money alone. Wealth without direction rarely produces fulfillment, but wealth guided by purpose can create freedom, stability, and the ability to build something meaningful. When discipline becomes a way of life, something remarkable begins to happen. Chaos becomes easier to navigate. Decisions become clearer. Confidence grows not from external validation, but from internal preparation. Over time, the disciplined individual discovers that success is no longer something mysterious or distant. It becomes the natural outcome of habits practiced day after day. The discipline code begins with a simple realization. Your future is not built by occasional moments of inspiration. It is built by the quiet discipline of your daily actions. Chapter 1. Control what you can control. Most people spend their lives fighting battles they were never meant to win. They worry about the economy, the stock market, what others think about them, and opportunities they believe they have missed. Day after day, their minds chase events beyond their influence, and in doing so, they exhaust themselves trying to control things that were never within their power to begin with. The Stoic philosophers understood this problem long ago. One of the most powerful lessons they offered humanity was remarkably simple. Some things are within your control, and some things are not. The clearer you become about this distinction, the calmer and stronger your life becomes. At first, this idea seems obvious. Of course, there are things outside our control. Everyone knows that. Yet very few people actually live according to this principle. Instead, they allow external events to dictate their emotions and decisions. A market drops and panic spreads. A co-worker receives an opportunity and jealousy appears. A plan fails and frustration begins to grow. In these moments, people unknowingly surrender control of their inner world to forces they cannot influence. The disciplined individual chooses a different path. They understand something that most people overlook. Your life is not determined by what happens to you. It is determined by how you respond to what happens. You cannot control the economy, but you can control how much you learn about money. You cannot control whether markets rise or fall tomorrow, but you can control how consistently you save and invest over time. You cannot control whether opportunities appear in your life, but you can control whether you are prepared when they arrive. This shift in thinking is powerful because it returns authority back to where it belongs. Your actions become your focus. Your habits become your foundation. Your discipline becomes the force that shapes your future. Consider two people beginning their financial journey. The first spends much of their time worrying about what might happen next. They read every headline, watch every market movement, and allow their emotions to change with each piece of news. One day they feel confident. The next day they feel discouraged. Their behavior constantly shifts based on events they cannot control. The second person approaches life differently. They accept uncertainty as a permanent feature of the world. Instead of reacting to every change, they focus on preparation. They learn how money works. They develop the habit of saving consistently. They invest patiently and continue learning as they move forward. At first, the difference between these two people may appear small. Both are living in the same world. Both experience the same economic conditions. But several years later, the difference becomes undeniable. One person is still reacting to circumstances. The other has built a foundation. That foundation is discipline. Discipline removes chaos from your decision-making. It allows you to act with clarity even when the world around you feels uncertain. Instead of responding emotionally to every change, you begin making decisions based on principles you have already chosen. The Stoics believe that peace of mind begins when we stop resisting reality. Markets will fluctuate. People will behave unpredictably. Opportunities will appear and disappear without warning. These things are part of the natural order of life. But none of these events have the power to control your character unless you allow them to. The disciplined individual builds their life upon qualities that cannot easily be taken away. They invest in knowledge. They practice patience. They develop self-control. They prepare themselves for both opportunity and difficulty. These qualities grow stronger over time. Knowledge compounds as learning continues. Patience strengthens as discipline becomes habit. Self-control deepens each time a person chooses reason over impulse. Eventually, these qualities create something powerful: confidence. Not the loud confidence that demands attention, but the quiet confidence that comes from preparation. The kind of confidence that allows a person to move forward even when circumstances are uncertain. When you truly understand what lies within your control, your attention begins to shift naturally. You stop wasting energy worrying about what might happen tomorrow. Instead, you begin focusing on what you can do today. You strengthen your habits. You improve your skills. You make decisions with intention rather than emotion. And slowly, almost without noticing, your life begins to change. Because success rarely arrives suddenly. It is built quietly through small decisions repeated consistently over long periods of time. The discipline code begins with this realization. Focus on what you can control, release what you cannot, and allow your disciplined actions to become the foundation of the future you are building. Chapter 2. Master your impulses. If discipline begins with understanding what we can control, the next step is learning how to control ourselves. This may sound simple in theory, but in practice it is one of the most difficult challenges a person will ever face. Human beings are naturally driven by impulses. We feel the urge to act quickly when something excites us. We feel the urge to avoid discomfort when something becomes difficult. These impulses are not inherently bad. They are part of being human. But when impulses are allowed to guide our decisions without reflection, they begin to shape our lives in ways that often lead to instability. The Stoic philosophers recognized this pattern long ago. They observed that most people are not controlled by reason, but by desire. One moment they are excited about an opportunity. The next moment they are discouraged by a setback. Their decisions rise and fall with their emotions, and as a result, their progress becomes unpredictable. This pattern becomes especially dangerous when money is involved. Modern society constantly encourages impulsive financial behavior. Advertisements are designed to trigger emotional reactions. Social media presents carefully curated images of luxury and success. News headlines amplify excitement and fear in equal measure. Surrounded by these influences, many people begin making financial decisions based on feelings rather than thoughtful judgment. A person might spend money simply because something looks appealing in the moment. Another might chase an investment because everyone else appears to be profiting from it. Someone else might abandon a long-term plan after experiencing a temporary loss. Each of these decisions may seem small at the time, but over the course of years they create a pattern that prevents financial stability from ever taking root. The disciplined individual approaches these moments differently. Instead of reacting immediately, they pause. This pause may last only a few seconds, but it creates space for reason to enter the decision. In that brief moment, the disciplined person asks a simple question. Is this decision aligned with my long-term goals, or is it simply satisfying a temporary feeling? That question alone has the power to transform a person's relationship with money. When people begin examining their impulses instead of obeying them automatically, they start to notice patterns they had never seen before. They recognize how often their spending decisions are connected to emotion rather than necessity. They see how easily excitement can push them toward unnecessary risk, and how fear can cause them to abandon opportunities prematurely. The Stoics believe that freedom begins with this awareness. A person who cannot control their impulses becomes controlled by them. Their decisions are dictated by whatever feeling happens to be strongest in the moment. But a person who learns to observe their impulses gains the ability to choose their response. This ability is one of the most powerful forms of self-mastery. Consider the role impulse plays in financial markets. Investors often buy when excitement is high and prices are rising. The atmosphere feels optimistic, and people begin to believe that the upward trend will continue indefinitely. Yet when markets decline and fear spreads, many of those same investors rush to sell, hoping to escape further losses. This behavior has repeated itself countless times throughout financial history. Excitement leads people to buy at the wrong moment, and fear leads them to sell at the wrong moment. The disciplined investor avoids this cycle by mastering impulse. Instead of reacting emotionally, they rely on principles. They understand that markets move in cycles, and that short-term volatility is a normal part of long-term growth. Because their decisions are guided by discipline rather than emotion, they remain steady even when others become uncertain. But mastering impulse does not apply only to investing. It also applies to everyday financial habits. A disciplined person does not spend money simply because they have it. they spend with intention. They understand that every dollar represents time and effort invested in earning it. Because of this, they treat money as a resource that deserves thoughtful management. Over time, this perspective changes behavior in powerful ways. Unnecessary purchases become easier to resist. Savings begin to grow steadily. Investments accumulate without the need for dramatic action. What once felt like restriction gradually becomes a source of confidence. The Stoics believe that the mind becomes stronger each time it chooses discipline over impulse. Each moment of restraint reinforces the next. Gradually, self-control becomes less difficult because it has been practiced repeatedly. This is how discipline develops. It does not appear suddenly. It grows through practice. Each time you pause before acting, you strengthen your ability to make wiser decisions in the future. Each time you resist the urge to chase short-term excitement, you reinforce your commitment to long-term stability. Over time, this practice creates something powerful: clarity. The disciplined person sees opportunities more clearly because their judgment is not clouded by emotion. They see risks more accurately because they are not blinded by excitement. And they move forward with greater confidence because their actions are guided by principle rather than impulse. This is the second pillar of the discipline code. Master your impulses, and your decisions will begin to serve your future rather than your emotions. Chapter 3. Consistency over intensity. Many people believe success comes from moments of extraordinary effort. They imagine that dramatic change must come from dramatic action. They wait for powerful bursts of motivation, believing that when the right moment arrives, they will suddenly transform their lives. But this belief often leads to disappointment. Motivation is powerful, but it is also temporary. It appears when something inspires us, but it fades when that inspiration disappears. A person might feel energized after reading a book, listening to a speech, or setting ambitious goals. For a short time, their focus is strong. They work harder, study more, and feel confident about their future. Yet as days pass, the excitement fades. Life becomes busy again. The routines of everyday responsibilities return. Without realizing it, the person slowly abandons the very habits they believed would change their life. The Stoic philosophers recognized this pattern long ago. They understood that relying on motivation alone is unreliable. Instead, they believed that lasting progress comes from something far quieter and far more dependable. Consistency. Consistency does not require excitement. It does not depend on inspiration. It depends on discipline. A person who practices small, disciplined actions every day will eventually outperform someone who relies on occasional bursts of effort. This principle applies to nearly every area of life, but it becomes especially powerful when applied to financial success. Building financial strength rarely happens through sudden breakthroughs. Instead, it happens through steady habits practiced over long periods of time. Saving money consistently, even in small amounts, creates financial stability that grows gradually. Learning about investing in business, even for a short time each day, develops knowledge that compounds over the years. Making thoughtful financial decisions repeatedly builds a system that supports long-term growth. At first, these actions may appear insignificant. A small deposit into savings may not seem impressive. A few minutes spent studying financial principles may not feel like meaningful progress. Compared to stories of overnight success, these behaviors can appear slow. But consistency transforms these small actions into something powerful. Consider two individuals beginning their financial journey at the same time. The first person acts with intensity. When they feel motivated, they work aggressively toward their goals. They invest large amounts of energy into learning, planning, and pursuing opportunities. But when motivation fades, their efforts decline. Weeks or months may pass before they regain the enthusiasm needed to continue. The second person behaves differently. They focus less on intensity and more on consistency. Each week they save a portion of their income. Each day they spend time improving their understanding of money. They make steady progress even when they do not feel particularly inspired. At first, the difference between these two individuals may appear small, but several years later, the results become dramatically different. The person who relied on bursts of motivation has made progress only during brief periods of excitement. Their efforts have been inconsistent, and as a result, their growth has been unpredictable. The person who practiced consistency has built a foundation. Their savings have accumulated steadily. Their knowledge has expanded year after year. Their financial decisions have become more confident and precise. What once seemed like small actions have compounded into meaningful results. The Stoics believed that character itself is formed through repeated behavior. A person becomes disciplined not through a single decision, but through the steady repetition of disciplined choices. Each time a person chooses to act with intention rather than impulse, they strengthen their ability to do so again in the future. Financial habits develop in exactly the same way. A person who saves money regularly strengthens their habit of financial responsibility. A person who invests patiently becomes more comfortable with long-term thinking. A person who studies consistently develops the clarity needed to make wiser decisions over time. Eventually, these behaviors become part of who they are. They no longer feel forced. They become natural. Consistency also protects individuals from one of the most dangerous forces in financial life: emotional reaction. Markets move up and down. Economic conditions change. News spreads excitement one day and fear the next. People who react emotionally to these fluctuations often find themselves making decisions that undermine their long-term progress. The disciplined individual behaves differently. Because their actions are guided by habits rather than emotion, they remain steady. They continue saving. They continue investing. They continue learning. Temporary changes in the environment do not disrupt the systems they have built. Over time, this stability creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence strengthens discipline. And discipline produces results that once seemed impossible. The Stoics understood that greatness rarely appears in dramatic moments. It is formed quietly through the repetition of thoughtful action. The same is true for financial success. Consistency may not attract attention in the beginning, but over time it becomes one of the most powerful forces shaping a person's life. This is the third pillar of the discipline code. Choose consistency over intensity and allow your steady actions to build the future you seek. Chapter 4. Strength through discomfort. Most people naturally move toward comfort. Comfort feels safe. It feels predictable. When life is comfortable, the mind relaxes and the body settles into routine. There is nothing inherently wrong with comfort, but the Stoic philosophers believe that relying on comfort too heavily weakens a person's ability to grow. Growth rarely occurs in situations that feel easy. Throughout history, individuals who developed extraordinary strength, whether physical, intellectual, or financial, did so by learning how to endure periods of difficulty. They understood that discomfort is not an enemy to be avoided at all costs. Often it is simply a sign that progress is taking place. The Stoics understood this idea deeply. They believed that adversity was not merely something to survive, but something that could strengthen character when approached with the right mindset. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, practiced what he called voluntary discomfort. Occasionally, he would deliberately live with fewer luxuries than he could easily afford. He would eat simple food, wear modest clothing, and remind himself that comfort was not necessary for stability. He did this not because he despised comfort, but because he wanted to remove his dependence on it. By practicing discomfort willingly, he trained his mind to remain calm even when circumstances became difficult. This practice built resilience. Financial life often requires the same kind of resilience. The journey toward financial independence rarely feels comfortable in the beginning. It requires choices that may feel inconvenient compared to the habits many people follow around us. Saving money may require resisting purchases that others enjoy freely. Investing may require patience during periods when progress feels slow or uncertain. Learning new skills may require time and effort when relaxation would be easier. For many people, These moments of discomfort become the point where they abandon their goals. They begin with good intentions, but when the effort becomes difficult, they return to familiar habits. Comfort wins, and discipline fades. The disciplined individual approaches these moments differently. Instead of interpreting discomfort as a signal to stop, they recognize it as part of the process. They understand that meaningful progress almost always requires temporary sacrifice. Just as physical strength develops through resistance and exercise, financial strength develops through disciplined endurance. Saving money when it would be easier to spend it builds the habit of restraint. Continuing to learn when progress feels slow builds patience. Maintaining an investment strategy during uncertain times builds emotional stability. Each of these actions strengthens the mind. Over time, the discomfort that once felt challenging begins to feel normal. The disciplined person becomes comfortable doing things that others avoid. This creates a powerful advantage. Consider the behavior of investors during uncertain markets. When prices begin to fall, fear spreads quickly. News headlines amplify the sense of danger, and many people rush to sell their investments in an attempt to escape further loss. But the disciplined investor understands something different. They know that markets move in cycles. Periods of growth are often followed by periods of decline. These fluctuations are not unusual. They are part of how markets function. Because they expect these moments of discomfort, they remain calm while others panic. Instead of reacting emotionally, they observe the situation carefully. They evaluate whether their long-term strategy still makes sense. Often they discover that what feels like a crisis in the moment is simply a temporary stage in a much longer cycle. This ability to remain steady during discomfort often leads to opportunities that others miss. When fear spreads through markets, prices can fall below their true value. Those who have the discipline to remain patient during uncertainty are often the ones who benefit when stability returns. But developing this kind of patience requires practice. Resilience does not appear suddenly in moments of crisis. It is built gradually through experience. Each time a person chooses discipline over comfort, their ability to endure difficulty grows stronger. The Stoics believed that adversity reveals character. When circumstances become difficult, people often discover whether their discipline is genuine or temporary. The disciplined individual does not seek hardship, but they do not fear it either. They understand that challenges are part of the path toward growth. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that obstacles do not necessarily block progress. Instead, they can become the path itself. When viewed through this perspective, discomfort changes meaning. Instead of being something to avoid, it becomes something to learn from. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen patience, resilience, and clarity. Over time, the person who embraces this mindset develops a form of stability that cannot easily be shaken. External circumstances may change, but their discipline remains steady. Financial markets may fluctuate, but their principles remain the same. Opportunities may come and go, but their preparation continues. This stability becomes one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. Because in a world where many people retreat from discomfort, the individual who learns to endure it gains a powerful advantage. The discipline code teaches us that growth and comfort rarely exist at the same time. Those who pursue only comfort remain where they are. Those who accept temporary discomfort gain the ability to move forward. This is the fourth pillar of the discipline code. Strength is built through discomfort. Chapter 5. Purpose and Endurance. Discipline creates structure in a person's life. It shapes habits, strengthens decisions, and gradually builds the stability required for long-term success. Yet discipline alone is not always enough to sustain a person over the long journey required to build something meaningful. There must also be purpose. Without purpose, discipline can begin to feel mechanical. A person may develop the habit of saving money, learning about investments, and working steadily toward financial goals. But if those actions are not connected to a deeper reason, motivation eventually begins to weaken. The Stoic philosophers understood this well. They believe that human beings are most resilient when their actions are guided by a clear sense of purpose. Discipline becomes far easier to maintain when it serves something greater than short-term comfort or personal recognition. For the Stoics, wealth was never the ultimate goal of life. Money itself was simply a tool. It could provide stability, independence, and the freedom to make decisions based on values rather than necessity. But wealth without direction could easily become empty. History offers countless examples of individuals who accumulated great fortunes only to discover that financial success alone did not provide lasting fulfillment. Without purpose, money simply becomes a number that must constantly grow in order to maintain satisfaction. The disciplined individual understands that financial success should serve a greater objective. Some people pursue financial independence because they want the freedom to control their time. Others want to create stability for their families. Some wish to build businesses that improve the lives of others. Still others seek the ability to contribute to causes they believe in deeply. When money becomes connected to purpose, discipline gains endurance. Consider two people attempting to build financial strength. The first person focuses only on the numbers. They watch their accounts constantly, measuring success purely through financial growth. Their motivation depends heavily on visible progress. When the numbers increase quickly, they feel excited. When progress slows, they become discouraged. The second person views financial discipline differently. They see money as a tool that supports a larger vision for their life. Each dollar saved represents freedom in the future. Each investment represents the possibility of building something meaningful. Their discipline is connected not only to financial growth, but to the life they hope to create. Because their motivation is rooted in purpose rather than immediate reward, they remain steady even when progress feels slow. Temporary setbacks do not cause them to abandon their strategy. They understand that meaningful achievements often require patience, and patience becomes easier when a person remembers why they began the journey in the first place. Purpose also protects the disciplined individual from distraction. Modern society constantly offers new opportunities that promise quick rewards. New trends appear in markets. New business ideas gain sudden popularity. Social media amplifies stories of rapid success that can make anyone feel as though they are falling behind. Without purpose, it is easy to become distracted by these signals. People begin chasing every opportunity that appears profitable, constantly shifting direction in pursuit of the next promising trend. Over time, this lack of focus prevents them from building the consistency required for real progress. But when a person understands their purpose clearly, their decisions become simpler. They no longer chase every opportunity. They pursue the opportunities that align with their values and long-term goals. This clarity strengthens discipline. The Stoics believed that a life guided by purpose creates internal stability. When individuals understand why they pursue discipline, their actions become aligned with their principles. They no longer depend on the approval of others to maintain motivation. Instead, they become guided by their own sense of direction. This internal guidance becomes especially important during moments of difficulty. Building financial independence is rarely a smooth process. Markets fluctuate, investments experience setbacks, plans require adjustment. Without a strong sense of purpose, these challenges can cause people to abandon their progress. But when discipline serves something meaningful, endurance becomes possible. Saving money becomes preparation for freedom. Learning becomes preparation for opportunity. Patience becomes an investment in a future that has been chosen deliberately. Over time, the disciplined individual begins to recognize that the true reward of this journey is not simply the accumulation of wealth. It is the development of character. Through discipline and purpose, a person becomes more patient, more thoughtful, and more resilient. They learn to make decisions based on long-term principles rather than short-term emotion. This transformation becomes a form of wealth that cannot easily be taken away. Markets may change, financial circumstances may shift, but the habits and character developed through disciplined living remain. The Stoics believed that the greatest success a person can achieve is mastery of their own life. When discipline is guided by purpose, that mastery becomes possible. Financial strength grows steadily, decisions become clearer, and the individual begins building a life shaped not by impulse or circumstance, but by intention. This is the fifth pillar of the discipline code. Purpose creates endurance. Conclusion. Living the discipline code. Throughout history, people have searched for the secret behind success. They study the lives of wealthy individuals, great thinkers, and influential leaders, hoping to discover the hidden formula that explains how certain people build powerful lives while others struggle to gain stability. But when we look closely at those who achieve lasting success, the mystery begins to fade. Behind nearly every enduring achievement lies something simple and often overlooked. Discipline. Not dramatic bursts of effort, not sudden strokes of luck, not a single opportunity that changed everything overnight. Instead, success is usually built through small decisions repeated consistently over long periods of time. The discipline code is not a complicated philosophy. It is a return to principles that human beings have understood for centuries, but often forget in moments of impatience or distraction. Focus on what you can control. Master your impulses. Practice consistency rather than relying on short bursts of motivation. Grow stronger through discomfort instead of avoiding it. And anchor your discipline to a purpose that gives meaning to your effort. Each of these principles may seem simple when considered on its own, but when practiced together, they begin to shape a person's life in powerful ways. The person who focuses on what they can control stops wasting energy on things that do not move them forward. Their attention shifts toward preparation, learning, and improvement. The person who masters their impulses begins making decisions based on reason rather than emotion. Money becomes a tool that serves long-term goals instead of temporary desires. The person who practices consistency develops habits that continue working even when motivation fades. Progress becomes steady rather than unpredictable. The person who learns to endure discomfort builds resilience. Challenges no longer appear as signs of failure, but as opportunities to grow stronger. And the person who connects discipline to purpose develops the endurance required to continue the journey even when results take time. Together, these principles form the foundation of the discipline code. Living according to this code does not require perfection. No one follows these principles flawlessly every day. There will be moments when impulses take control, when patience weakens, or when discouragement appears. But discipline is not about being perfect. It is about returning to the path each time we drift away from it. Each day presents another opportunity to practice the habits that shape our future. A decision to save instead of spend. A decision to learn instead of remain comfortable. A decision to remain calm instead of reacting emotionally. These decisions may appear small in isolation, but over time they accumulate into something powerful. Habits form. Confidence grows. Financial stability begins to take shape. And eventually, the life that once felt distant begins to feel real. The Stoic philosophers believed that true freedom does not come from controlling the world around us. The world will always remain unpredictable. Markets will rise and fall. Opportunities will appear and disappear. Circumstances will change in ways no one can fully control. But a disciplined person builds stability from within. Their habits guide their decisions. Their principles guide their actions. Their purpose guides their direction. This inner stability becomes one of the greatest advantages a person can possess. Because while others react to every shift in circumstance, the disciplined individual continues moving forward with clarity. The discipline code is not simply about money. It is about building a life guided by intention rather than impulse. Money may grow as a result of this discipline, but something even more valuable grows alongside it. Character, confidence, and the quiet understanding that your life is being shaped not by chance, but by the choices you make each day. Imagine a lighthouse standing along a rocky coastline. Storms come and go, Waves rise and fall. Ships travel through darkness searching for direction. The lighthouse does not chase the ships. It does not panic during the storm. It simply stands steady, shining the same light night after night. Discipline works the same way. When practiced consistently, it becomes a guiding force in your life. It helps you navigate uncertainty. It keeps you moving forward when others lose direction. And over time, it leads you toward the future you have chosen to build. This is the discipline code, and it begins with the decisions you make today.